Now today marks the beginning of Youth Month. Latest statistics by Statistics South Africa shows that the unemployment rate in South Africa increased to 26.4% in the first quarter of 2015 from 24.3% in the fourth quarter of last year. The country currently has less than 20 black women qualified as professional archaeologists. Now, for over the years, the heritage sector has been the least explored and the least interesting sector when it comes to youth career choices, something with the South African Heritage Resource Agency hopes to change here. Sahra has launched an awareness campaign to promote and raise public awareness on careers in the heritage sector. Careers such as heritage management studies, archaeology, anthropology, amongst others. Now, from the South African Heritage Resource Agency, we're joined live in Cape Town by Katie Smuts, who is the Manager of Inventory. Very good morning to you, Katie. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Evan. Thank you.
How important is it for young South Africans to know and preserve their and our heritage?
Evan, I think in South Africa we cannot overestimate how important it is that the youth understand, appreciate and practice heritage in South Africa. We have a phenomenally complex past, as we all know, and not only the recent and more distant historical past, but going back right to ancient times. From recent archaeological excavations, it seems apparent that humanity as we understand it, as the practice of modern behavior, originated in southern Africa. So I think we have a phenomenal heritage to celebrate, and that for our youth to be mindful of where we come from and how we've got to the incredibly complex present that we live in this country. It's an exceptionally exciting career path and practice.
Now, what are some of the most exciting careers that young people can get into that we don't know about? And tell us then about the campaign drive that you guys are on.
Well, my personal background is as an archaeologist, and I, when dinner conversation falls flat, all I have to ever say is, I'm an archaeologist, and an excited ripple moves through the room. So personally, I think obviously that archaeology is phenomenally exciting, as is paleontology in this country. We've got some of the most extraordinary fossil remains from around the world. But any of the heritage studies, I really think that this country is an exceptional place to be engaged in study of the past. The anthropology of our first inhabitants, the Khoisan, is extraordinary in terms of world studies. So it would be hard put for me to pick the most exciting. And our Heritage Act, the National Heritage Resources Act, is one of the most progressive pieces of heritage legislation in the world. So even from a management point of view, a regulatory point of view, it's a very interesting field to be in. The drive, as you've said, centers around the fact that it's a very underexplored career option, particularly for people from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's tough to pick a career where you aren't necessarily walking into high-paying and freely available jobs. But I think that the reward that you get from the work and the capacity to grow yourself as a human being and really understand your place in the country and the country's place in the world is infinitely rewarding.
Now, you're an archaeologist, and we have less than 20 black female archaeologists in South Africa. That says a lot. How do we overcome this?
It's a tough one, and I know that the professional association, ASAPA, the Association of Southern African Professional Archaeologists, has been working very hard lately to redress the problems with transformation. As I've said, certainly when I was studying archaeology at university, it's never been a surefire career option. You don't know that you're going to walk out of university with a degree. But I think the diversification of the heritage industry has meant that anyone with a bit of imagination and some passion for their career can find ways of creating a niche for themselves. For instance, archaeotourism. We have the West Coast Fossil Park. We've got the phenomenal rock art of the Cederberg Mountains. There are extraordinary careers to be made in archaeotourism, for instance. And particularly where you're taking the knowledge of your own particular people in this country back to your hometown and exploring how the things that you've studied and learnt about apply to the area that you grew up in. So there's opportunities for small business development, particularly in tourism, in the most remote parts of South Africa.
Katie, thank you for joining us. Very interesting. I'm sure you guys will be engaging with schools and the like all over the country. And let's hope that we can get many, many more young people involved in the work that you do. That's from the Southern African Heritage Resource Agency. That was Katie Smuts, and she was telling us about the campaign that they're on to try and get more young people involved in the field of heritage, not just in South Africa, but the wider world. Now, Southern African...